All right. Should I start?
I don't know. You want to talk about your game at all?
Yeah, no. That's what I meant. Should I start the process?
Yeah, some shit you gotta do now. Like, tell us what the date is.
God.
What's the date, Joe? What is it? Is it October 4th?
I don't even know what date it is.
Oh, yeah, because you work from home.
Yeah.
Dates mean nothing.
Dates mean nothing. Is it weekend or not weekend? That's all. That's all that matters.
It's the 14th.
All right. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the first game number 50 on my top 50 video games of all time list.
This is the shittiest of Joe's favorite games. You're about to watch literally the worst game that Joe likes.
No, because I played well more than 50. The way you have to look at it is this. This is the positive spin on this. There were a lot of games. A lot of games got the heave-ho. This game held on. It just stayed there. And I was like, should I cut this game?
This game is the most impressive of all the games because it's the one that didn't get away.
That's right. There was many opportunities for me to be like, nah, it gets off the list. It gets kicked off the list. And it's like, nope, it stays on the list. In fact, it stays on the list.
Because, I would assume that we all have... I would say I have 15 games. Maybe 20.
That you were like...
That are, must-haves.
Right.
Like, yes, maybe they'll move from, 1 to 20. Like, I'm gonna argue about... But once you start getting past a certain point, you start being like, is this list worthy or is this garbage?
Yeah.
And I feel like once you get to 50, anything could be 50.
No,
I'm surprised that Toji Evan Earl isn't 50.
I know.
Just because you love me.
I mean, I do love you. And I'm gonna kind of go over this. There was something that I wrote when I tried to do this a couple years ago. And when I did it previously, when I was starting to write this up on GeekWatch, the list has changed kind of drastically since then. And because, once you start looking at your list more and more, you start making these, Sophie's choices of, does this one belong? No, but this one has to be here. And then, kind of the numbering becomes arbitrary after some point, because you're like, this or this. This or that.
You can't really go by that, because no choice is ever going to be as important as the choice in that movie.
Right. It's
it's
true.
not a big deal.
It's true.
But it is for you,
this is... So...
It's okay, Joe. Cats
I'm kind of gonna go over why I think this is, why I went down this path and why I've decided that I, needed to do this.
Show the string your pretty face. Come on.
I'm a dog.
There we go. Hi. You're good. Good boy.
Alright. So while I really wanted to do this top 50 personal list, a question that I had to ask myself was simply, why? There are many different reasons why I felt I needed to do this. An obvious one is that I wanted to do something for the stream. I think that's a pretty cool thing. But, anyone can just come up with a list, slap some numbers on it, and go, yeah, I know, I did something, and then just leave it and, let it be done. But this is a really personal process because I'm going to be playing all of these for you, and it's going to take me at least a year, I would think, quite possibly more. But in addition to all that, there are a couple different reasons, and I've broken them down into 3 different... Was it 3 or is it 4? It is 4. 4 different reasons why. First reason, I wanted to skip the conjecture. We've all had a situation where we have stated that something we like is one of our favorites of all time. If a statement... it is a statement that is there just to show how much you enjoyed something. No matter what it is, whether it's a movie or video game, we say it all the time. Oh, that's one of my favorites of all time. Yet the statement can be used a bit too much at times, and it can begin to lose meaning.
I think it's funny because you're talking about these really personal things, and the dog is behind me just licking my hand. And he's the star of the show right now.
That is his number 1 hand right now. He's like, I want to lick this hand.
That's my favorite.
Okay, he doesn't even want mine. More than that, though, after you make such a proclamation, don't you begin to think through your list? This is something that I'm constantly doing. If I say, oh, that's one of my favorites of all time, then I go, well, what is it compared to this, and compared to this, and compared to that? So because of that, I wanted to do the mental exercise. I wanted to sit down and really think about my top 50 games of all time. And just have a definitive yes. These are the games that mean the most to me. And because of that, we've come to reason number 2, which is find out more about yourself.
So does that bug mean the most to you?
It means the most to them. You find out a lot about yourself when you start placing games on a list, and also like what games end up being like deal breakers for you. It's like, no, this has to be on the list. I think this is a reason enough for other people to do the exercise as well, because you're going to learn more about yourself. It can be a great way to share stories and get a better understanding of how people think and consume their media. In my experience, as you put down items on your list, you begin to remember where in your life you were. Oh my god, dog. What's going on? Can you stop?
There's a bug.
Okay. Let's see. Where was I? Yeah. This can be a very powerful method of seeing just how far you have come and evolved as a person. Some of the video games that are at the top of my list helped me not only be a better gamer, but also gave me the opportunity to improve as a web designer and as an event organizer. You know, these are things that are important to me. So, another reason, expose people to new things. There are games on this list that many people probably have never heard of, or maybe they've heard of it but never actually played it. This is a good way for me to kind of share those games with you, and others you're just gonna be like, yeah, this would also be on my list. I want to see this. And the other thing is you're having fun with nostalgia. In order to even pull off a list like this, the amount of time you need to spend just remembering all the games you have played is staggering. There are so many times where I've sent this list to Katie, to other people, being like, did I forget anything? What have I forgotten?
Oh yeah, it's like, because and you have to like, it's not something you can do in like a day or even a week. Like I feel like there's so much, like you kind of have to like do it, put it on the shelf, look at it, think of it again, send it to somebody who really knows you and say like, what do you think about this? Did I forget anything? And you end up having all these fun conversations, like where you'll send it to someone and they'll be like, to Joe, you don't have any Zelda games on your list, and Joe will go, fuck Zelda, and they'll go, whoa, okay,
right,
okay, that's how we're doing it, and Joe will say like, yeah, man, fuck Zelda. That's something about Joe.
Right.
That's something you learned about Joe today.
Right. And during that process, you have to remember video games all the way to... I had to remember games all the way to, like, the Atari 800. Like, because I was like, oh, yeah, I played that. I've done this. It's, like, it's crazy. You have to remember all of this during your childhood. You have to weigh it between, like, was it really good? Is it just nostalgia? Was it just because I really liked that game because it was the only game I got for Christmas that one year? Like, there's a lot of things you have to factor. So it's and like anything else, it's a personal list. So this is not a definitive list. Like, this is not like, oh yeah, absolutely, this is true for everybody. No, it's a very personal list. So my list will not be like anybody else's.
This dog is just hamming up back here.
Good. He's staring at that cat. So now to give you some guidelines on what I used to kind of break down the list, because like everybody else, we all have different ways that we played video games. The way I played video games is very different than you, and so forth. So, first console I had as a young child, we're talking like 3 or 4, was an Atari. This was back when I lived in California, and I remember playing maybe 1 or 2 games on it. The console I spent the most time as a child was the Nintendo Entertainment System. That was my console of choice. I never played a Sega. I never did anything like that. After the NES, I did not buy a console until GameCube. So there is roughly a 12-year difference between my first console and my next. So because of that, I never played things like a Super Nintendo, a PlayStation 1, a PlayStation 2.
You had a PS2?
No. When you gave me your PS2 in college, that was the first time I got my hands on a PS2.
Oh. Well, I didn't give it to you. I just spent most time with you. I spent 4 days a week with you, so I was like, maybe you should keep this here.
Right. Now, I had some friends that had a PlayStation 1 and a Nintendo 64 and things like that. So I did play some of those games, but it was very sporadic. I had a Game Boy, an original Game Boy, but that was about it. So most of my games that I played were on a personal computer, whether it was a PC or a Mac.
I'm sorry.
I played some game. My dad's computer at the time was a piece of shit, but it was like the fastest piece of shit that me and my friends had. I think it was like a Pentium 133 or something. Ooh, 133 megahertz. It was like so fast. So that was what was up. The first computer that I got personally was a Macintosh, which was fine, but it also limited the number of games I could play because not a lot of games were being made for Macintosh. And then once I got a GameCube, I've been pretty current on consoles after that. The Xbox 360, PS3 era had everything. A Wii, a 3DS, a DS, now PS4 and whatnot. So, you know, I've kept current after that, but there's a big gap in consoles, at least.
I felt like that way too. I mean, totally, even more than you. Like, I had like Wii and Nintendo and a Sega, and my parents got divorced. My dad took the Nintendo and left the Sega.
Right.
But the only game I had for the Sega was like, well, I had two games. One was my dad's, so it was like, one was like NBA Jam,
right,
and the other one was the starter Sonic,
right.
And that was it. And then like I was like an ADD kid who didn't give a fuck about school.
Yeah.
So like when I hit like 9 or 10, my mom was just like, "You can't have video games because you can't focus."
Right.
Which I think is total bullshit, by the way.
Yeah. No,
like,
I hear you.
I wasn't like that I had ADD. It was that like I was the worst type of kid, which is that my parents instilled in me very strongly that you're supposed to challenge authority and that you're not supposed to like blindly accept things as they were. This was like very, very important to my parents, especially my dad. And so because of that, like I saw through school. And so like it's not that I wasn't smart or that I couldn't do work. It's just that I couldn't figure out why I should.
Right.
I was just like, I don't want to, so I'm just not going to. And so my mom spent like thousands of dollars on like tutors and like study skills, and I'm like, I don't need that. I just don't want to. And I feel like that's just like the worst problem you can have with a kid.
Right. Is
a kid who totally understands why they should, is smart enough to do it, and it's just like, nah, I don't think I'm going to be doing that.
So because of that, you didn't have a lot of video games.
Well, because of that, because my mom just always was like, she's like, you can't handle video games because you can't get your homework done. It's like, not the problem that I was having. But that's okay.
That's
like,
fine. That's fine.
So, like, from the age of, like, 9 to, like, 17, like, there were no video games in my house.
Yeah. I mean, I had video games, but I had a Mac, so I had really good video games because whatever was super popular made its way to the Macintosh, but...
So I got, like, a PlayStation 2 on my 18th birthday.
And that was a big deal.
And that was, like, the only video games I had. Don't get me wrong, like... I'm not saying that I never touched a controller between those ages. Like, I had a lot of friends who were gamers. But I had, when you have to go to someone's house to play a video game, you don't spend as much time with it as you would if you owned it.
It's a different experience. But also, that experience is important, because there are some games that I would go over to a friend's house and play, and they're on the list, because that feeling of, like, getting together with friends and, like, playing those games, that is awesome.
I mean, that's how I feel about, like, Mario Party, or, like... Smash, like Smash would be on my list, but like the GameCube version,
right? Yeah.
But like, I don't know. So because of that, like, there are video game skills that I have. Like, I'm good at a platformer because that's all I played growing up. Like, that's the only video game that I had like time with. Whereas, by the time I got to my PlayStation 2. The world of video games had changed.
Yeah.
And, like, I could play things like an RPG, or even, like, Prince of Persia, where you're kind of, like...
Yeah.
But that was, like... But anything that was, like, 2 sticks...
Yeah.
I, like, couldn't and still can't. Like, I have no, like, dexterity for that. Like, I can't, like... I don't know. So there's like a whole section of video games that I just like have never built up muscle memory for.
Yeah, and also when I was playing a Nintendo, I had a weird relationship with Nintendo because I was young. I was like